to Maxed Out Man, helping you become the man you were made to be.
Hey guys, it's Kevin Davis from the Maxed Out Man podcast. This is episode number 17. I'm here with Matt Cline, who is the founder of Restored Ministries, which deals with basically sexual integrity for men and women. He's a coach, he's a leader, he does podcasting as well. So I'm sure he's got a ton to share with us. So I appreciate you being here, Matt.
I'm excited. Thanks, Kevin.
Yeah. Hey, give me a little bit of background on kind of what you do. I think it said that I read that you had done it 2017. So 5 or 6 years now you've been going with this ministry, and I'm sure it all started before then. But I'd love to hear kind of what you've got going on and how it came about and all that.
Cool. Yeah. I did start before then, but the ministry was started in 2017 and mostly offline stuff. And it was kind of neat, actually. In November of 2019, I felt like the Lord was putting it on my heart to build a big interactive online program. And so February 2020, I started building that, and the world shut down the next month, right? So, so through COVID,
well, you had plenty of time for testing, right?
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. So it was good, but COVID was good for the ministry. Obviously, because so many people were struggling, but it's been neat just seeing transformation after transformation since then. But I started speaking about porn in 2014, and the Lord just clearly called me into it. And it was something that had been on my heart for probably 5 or 6 years before that, even, just because obviously that was a struggle that I had. And it was about a 15-year struggle for me. But I thought it started when I was older, when I was 50 or something. And
yeah, old guy like those 50-year-olds.
Yeah, that's
like me. I'm 50.
Are you 50? Oh my God. Yeah, hey, I didn't say old. I said older than
That's okay. Yeah.
So yeah, I remember it was clear. It was a supernatural experience. God's like, hey, you know what? You want to start in the future? Do that now. And I said, now? I didn't think this would be now, but I'm glad I just love it. So I'm glad that he called me into it.
That's awesome. So what exactly is Restored Ministries? Kind of give me the lay of the land. I know, that, and your answer can be as long as you want. We're not bound by any timeline for sure.
Cool. That's awesome. Well, the foundational thing that we teach, and I appreciated one of our guys in one of our groups said this to me recently. He said, Matt, you're not just the porn guy. You're the identity in Christ guy. And I was like, oh, it's good, because I don't say it like that, but that is my heart. And so with me and with all of our leaders, our group leaders, that's the foundation is who are you? Like, who are you made to be? How are you made to live? God loves you. Like, all of the darkness in your life, he wants to touch that with his love. And when we hide things, it's hidden in darkness. And so we got to bring that to light, whether it's our sin, whether it's things that have happened to us. So many people confess sexual abuse that they've never worked through the abuse that they went through 10, 50 years ago, whatever it is. And so it all comes back to the identity that we feel we have is so often tied to either what's been done to us or what we've done. And so it's almost always a negative. When I ask people, I always ask, like, hey, if God were to describe you in a sentence, what would he say? And lots of times it's, I screw up lots, but at least he loves me, or I'm a disappointment or a hypocrite, and things like that. And so we want to get people aligned with who they are in Christ and really experience the love of the Father in those dark areas of their life. And so that's kind of the foundational stuff with how we teach. And once we have people there, then we can really dive into the dark stuff, or the things that they have deep shame about. But if you don't know that you're ultimately loved, or that you're safe, or that doesn't define you, it's a lot harder to go there. Because if you confess your sin, you're saying that that's who you are. And it's just, you got to get your identity right first. Yeah. And so and then what do we offer? We do group coaching, we do one-on-one coaching, we have courses that people go through, and that's for men and for women, and it's also for women on the betrayal side, the wives and the girlfriends. And so we could just bring that holistic healing to a marriage and to a family, and it's pretty cool.
That's awesome. I mean, this is, I'm a Christian, but this isn't a Christian podcast. We're not a ministry. So it's easy for you and I to kind of use language like sin and darkness and edification and identity in Christ and all those kind of things. How would you I mean, I'm sure that you deal with people that are in the secular realm. I mean, obviously you're a ministry, but there's people that aren't in this, on that same plane. How do you kind of describe the problem, quote unquote? Because a lot of people will say, well, porn is not that big a deal. I don't have a problem with it. It just, it doesn't really affect me. I watch it. I do, whatever. And it's just not a big deal. What's the problem, Matt? That's so kind of walk that through, and obviously within our, within a Christian biblical worldview, we have a specific way that we look at sin and just behaviors, not even calling it sin, but just negative behaviors in your life. But not everybody believes that, so I'd be interested in kind of getting your thoughts on that part.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, right now I'm working with a guy, he's 35 and he's never thought about God in his life, and that's fine. But he ended up cheating on his wife, with a couple prostitutes and a couple other girls at work, and had a full out affair for over a year. And it obviously devastated their family. They're trying to work things out. But the first call that I ever had with him, he said, well, obviously I know porn was what led to this. And, when there's what it does in our brain, I mean, there's an emotional part of it too, where you just, whenever you're going through hard things in life, you want to escape into pornography. And so you never deal with a lot, or I shouldn't say never, but often people don't deal with emotional maturity or develop their emotional quotient to the point where they can handle things in life or handle stressors in a healthy way. And so we just go to pornography to numb out, because the hit on our brain is so powerful. And so it feels good. And so even that's not even talking about the damage of porn. That's just talking about the damage of neglecting the hard things in your life or the stresses in your life by going to porn, because you never grow and mature as a person. And I see that all the time. A lot of what we do is emotional maturity and helping people grow in that and understand kind of their triggers in life. But as specific to porn, I mean, the average age probably when I was a kid was 8 years old, 8 to 11 years old for first exposure. But now it's younger. Like people are 5, 6 years old getting exposed to things, and it's insane. And so when you look at the brain development, there's a specific way that our brain is supposed to develop, and it's back to front. Like the back of our brain develops first, and then it kind of moves up, and the prefrontal cortex in the front of our brain, that doesn't develop fully till we're about 25. And so that's where the logic is, the reasoning, problem solving, critical thinking. And so when we've been developed, when our brain development is going on and we've been conditioned to go to pornography, well, the impact of porn on dopamine receptors and a protein called delta phos B and different things, it is like it's called a super stimuli. Porn is a super stimuli. And so a super stimuli, it's kind of like sugar in candy versus sugar in an apple. Sugar in an apple, that's healthy. Sugar in candy, it gets your blood sugars up to a level that it shouldn't be at. Well, it's the same with super stimuli in our brain. So pornography creates this response that hijacks our brain's development to the point where you almost never feel joy in anything else, or at least to the same degree that you feel when you watch porn. Life becomes dull. Either nobody's attractive or everybody, you sexualize everybody because of the impact of porn on your brain. And so your brain development is rewired in a negative way where you can't handle life in the way that you're supposed to, because you've been conditioned since you're 6 years old, 8 years old, 10 years old to just feel joy, feel pleasure, feel whatever through pornography. It's so damaging. The amount of people with ED, with erectile dysfunction now, it used to be people over 40 or maybe your age or whatever older that needed Viagra and these things. But there's porn-induced erectile dysfunction, which is different than erectile dysfunction, because porn-induced erectile dysfunction is a brain issue. And so a lot of these medications like Viagra, they don't deal with the brain. They just want to get the little guy up.
Yeah.
But it's a different issue. And so there's 19-year-olds now that can't get it up when they're with a woman, because they need porn. There's so many stories I've heard of people saying, like, can we have porn in the bed? Can I get porn on my phone? Because I can't get it up. And once they have that, then they can get it up with a woman. and these are teenagers. Like it's unreal. So those are some of the effects on a person. But even just, you got to look at what you're supporting. The amount of porn stars, ex-porn stars that I've talked to or I've heard that talk about what goes on in the industry, it is so evil, and it's just not something that you want to support.
Yeah, it's not a victimless crime, as I think everybody wants. That's always what they've said about prostitution too. But the porn industry is definitely not something that's a victimless crime. I mean, typically it's the women that are the victims. For the most part, I think in that industry. But that's really does it? So obviously the prefrontal cortex doesn't get developed, but it actually changes the way dopamine receptors work. That's like drugs, right? Like that's the problem with cocaine and methamphetamine and all of those, is that it caffeine works a little bit differently, because I think it actually blocks a chemical that affects your dopamine receptors. But if it's actually changing, is that reversible? Like if it is reversible. We had a doctor on our podcast, his Pure Victory podcast, and we had a doctor on there. He was relating it to cocaine, and he's saying with cocaine, the hit of dopamine, like from one hit of cocaine, the response with dopamine, it'll shoot up, super high, and after about 20 minutes or whatever, it'll kind of crash. With porn, it doesn't shoot up quite as high. Like the extreme nature of the dopamine release isn't quite as high, but it will last for hours. And so it spends when he said that, I could remember like, oh yeah, I spent all night watching porn, like 6-8 hours, just going steady. And so it's this constant, it's kind of like a sprinkler that just is like I pictured on a golf course, one of those circular sprinklers, and just constantly shooting out dopamine in response to watching pornography. And there's healthy dopamine release, right? Like there's, like, you win a championship in sports, you get a good mark in school, compliment or whatever, there's a dopamine release. And so to rewire a brain, there's even like choosing to smile, resting, praying or meditating, listening to music, those kinds of things, they'll rewire the brain. But the problem is, because of the super stimuli, it's hard to do that, especially at the start, because you're not getting that super stimuli that you get from porn. Mm-hmm. And so, like I was saying, nothing feels joyful to the degree that you get from porn. And so you feel like, oh man, even this thing that everybody says is fun, I don't feel like this is very fun. But in time, it gets better. And I noticed that even for myself. Just, I enjoyed reading more, or going for walks, or hanging out with friends, and just things that should be fun. I was able to enjoy them more once I quit porn. Even even intimacy, right? Being intimate with your wife, and that kind of stuff has got to be, because you've rewired the whole system. I actually was unaware of this porn-induced ED. That's super interesting, because it's that whole mechanism is relatively complicated in terms of how it have testosterone and all dopamine and everything factors in, but I didn't realize that was an issue. So
yeah, it's a big issue, and it's sad. And then think about the effects of that. You're in a relationship, and the woman isn't going to fully understand. She's going to go, what, you're not attracted to me? And then she gets insulted or offended, or just feels guilty, and then that creates separation and all these fights, and so the ripple effect just goes on, and it's just brutal. So it's worth not watching porn.
Yeah, because the intimacy is supposed to be intimacy in general is not supposed to. It's not the physical act component of it is such a small component, right? So if you take that, and if you've blown that and all the relational stuff that you just, especially these young guys who don't really learn how to develop, they don't even know what intimacy looks like for real, because if you watch porn, it's completely made up and fabricated. It's none of those things really happen in real life. It's like you watch these movies. I watch a lot of spy and crime and all that kind of stuff, and I'm like, all of a sudden they meet some person in the alleyway, and within 12 seconds they're having sex, and I'm like, that's not even physically possible. Someone is in serious pain right now if this is if that's what you're doing. It's like these, and that's just like mainstream movies and TV. That's not even like when you're talking about, actual real porn and that graduated continuum that they have now, which is unbelievably bad. But
well, it's insane. It's insane. The narrative of the world around sex and in porn is that it's all just good and it's all pleasurable. And then you start having sex, it's like, actually, there's a lot of work and there's communication that's involved. And you need to learn about what the other person wants, not just what you want. And porn is all about what you want. You watch porn, you're not going to suffer through watching something that you don't like for 20 minutes. Like,
yeah,
you're going to get what you want right when you want it. And that's just not always how it goes in sex. So, yeah, I mean, the intimacy thing is it's a real thing.
I'm interested in, do you see that that these people that come in and deal with this kind of addiction behavior, obviously you're dealing with people that are full-blown at it, have full-blown addictions or just realize it's a problem. Is that something where they have an addictive personality in general, or is it pretty specific? Like, will they turn, all right, well, I'm giving up porn, but I'm now going to start eating sugar all the time, or I'm even worse, I'm going to start smoking, or whatever. Is that something you see in your ministry?
Yeah, but you know what? I might be wrong on this, but I'm not a big fan of the addictive personality thing in general. I used to say that, I have an addictive personality. Like, well, that's a good justification to be addicted. It's not my fault. It's just the personality I was given.
Right.
So I'm like, no, the more I learn about, number one, brain science, but also number two, like the state of our heart and how we handle emotions, I'm like, that's the real issue. It's an immaturity emotionally to handle things in life, and then couple that with the brain science always like leading us to escape into things. That's where addiction comes from. But both of those things can be fixed, and we can grow in both of those things. So if we're not growing in our emotional maturity or spiritual maturity or rewiring the brain, then yeah, you can quit porn and go right to food. Or for me, I used to go gambling for a year or two. I wouldn't watch porn for a week, but I'd go to the casino, and then I don't want to stop that, lose too much money or whatever, and then go, and I wouldn't do that, but I go right back to porn. And I was like, man, this is messed up. What's going on here? So I do see it, but it's just part of people's journey, right? So we don't even focus a lot on like simply let's get free of porn. We focus on how could you handle life and manage life and just be an overall healthy person. And when we focus on that, the addictive behaviors kind of go away.
So what does that journey look like? If I'm someone that's, I don't know, let's say 30, I'm a 30-year-old guy. I come in and say, hey, I kind of recognize I have a problem. I'm not sure that it's really a problem or really affecting me. Or, I had an affair or something happened within my relationship. What does that journey look like, for the average person that you deal with? And I know it's individual, obviously, but.
Yeah, for sure. It is individual and it varies a bit, but there are certain principles for sure. And one of those would be getting everything out. And, it's common for people to just want to share the easiest stuff or only share what they've been busted on already. Yeah. And, oh yeah, I had one affair, but no, there were actually 3 other ones that you're hiding too, right? So getting everything out is super important. And if you can go and apologize to people that you've really hurt, that just does a huge number one on reconciling relationships, and caring for those people, but also just in your own heart where you've been in deceit, like you've been deceiving people or you've been hiding, and now you're actually taking ownership in those very areas where you used to not want to talk about those things. You're taking ownership by apologizing to people. And so yeah, owning your stuff, getting it out and owning it, that's a really good starting point. But then after that, we do a deep dive into like your belief system. And that's where I talk about like what's going on in the state of your heart. But what's your belief system? And so, as an example, we'll never go into anything that's bad for us without justifying it first. There's always a reason. I'm not going to overeat. And then there's like 3 pieces of cheesecake in front of you, and you're like, one more time.
Oh yeah, I mean all of that, by the way.
Yeah, exactly. So what are those justifications? And a lot of the justifications will highlight like selfishness, or they'll highlight that we feel like we're a victim, that we're out of control. And so it's kind of this trail that we just kind of follow the breadcrumbs. But when we see that somebody's a victim or they feel out of control, it often will highlight things in their past. And so a lot of times people will bring up like, man, yeah, my dad beat me as a kid, or he beat my mom and I had to witness it. I remember one guy was like, I was like 12 years old and I'd run out of my house and sleep in an alley because I couldn't handle what was going on in my home. And so now he's married. Well, now when he watches pornography, he just runs and hides and doesn't tell anybody because it's the whole pattern, right? So if we can go back to the trauma that leads to the belief system in somebody's heart, then we heal that trauma. We do a lot of really cool work with healing trauma, and even like the memories, the perceptions of the memories that we have changes, and we lead people from feeling just the hurt to actually seeing where they can be thankful for what they've been through. And it's a pretty cool process, and it might sound crazy if somebody hasn't gone through it. Like, how could I be thankful for these hard things? But when you can heal trauma and you can heal just a lot of hurts and memories that people have had, it starts to change the belief system in their heart. And so that's kind of, I don't know if that makes sense fully, but
that makes sense.
Like where we go in order to just create more healthy people.
Yeah. So you're talking about, and when you say, in this context, because we're talking about ministry and, Christianity and all that, when you say belief system, you're not talking about like what your personal faith belief system is necessarily. Obviously that's a component, but just to clarify, you're talking about like how we view the world, how we view ourselves, and how we view other people.
That's a good question. Accurate? Yeah. So like, do you think that you're a person who can, who is a blessing to the world? Do you think that you have purpose or significance in this world? If you don't think you have significance in the world and you're watching porn, even if you know it's bad for you, why quit? Like you would think that you're not affecting anybody. And you also think, I don't feel good doing something else. This feels good. There's no point in me quitting. So that's more what I'm talking about. And it's a great question. So do you feel like you have purpose? Do you feel like that people like you? One guy last week just told me, he's like, yeah, I just feel like I'm an unlikable prick and nobody really likes me. So, all right. So then he's not going to have really solid friendships and community. And when he's struggling, he's not going to open up to people because he thinks that people don't like him. And so then he just escapes into something that's not good for him because the belief system is people don't like me. I can't open up.
Because that person on the other side of the screen, who is an inanimate object, really, can't judge me, doesn't think I'm a prick, or whatever, right? Or if they're going further and doing some sort of interactive thing, then that person is obviously getting paid to like them, or prostitution or whatever, right?
Which is a real thing. Yeah, I mean, there's webcam models, but also with this AI stuff, it's nuts, man. Oh, there's like AI girlfriends. There's guys losing their minds when the companies with these AI girlfriends change the girlfriends, and they're like, "You took the only one that ever knew me away." And guys,
I heard that story. Yeah, I heard that story of that. It's a Japanese guy or something like that. I can't remember where they were from, but yeah, the company revamped the code of the AI girlfriend system or whatever, and it like literally ruined this guy's life because he believed they had a real relationship.
Yeah, there's people like, my girlfriend is the only one that knew me, or like, I'm going to commit suicide now because my girlfriend's changed. And it's crazy, man. It's so sad, but people get to dark places.
Well, and that's scary because it takes obviously over my lifetime when, I was 11, 12 years old, the only access to pornography would be like if a friend of mine's dad or older brother or uncle or somebody had some sort of magazine, physical magazine. We couldn't just access it. This was that would be pre-internet if I was 11 or 12 years old.
Yeah.
And now, like, you can't even go on almost any social media at all without just it being completely in your face. And,
it's crazy.
It's the AI thing that just is like, we're now progressing into a new realm that is, very, very scary.
Well, yeah, and I mean, there's been hentai or anime porn for a long time, and it's like every year it gets more and more popular. And some people will say, like, I feel like this is more okay because not actual, like, it's not actual people that are getting hurt, and so we justify it in that way. But now with AI, they're going to seem even more real. But then we can still use that same justification, and then with sex toys and all of that stuff, like, so I'm not talking about like normal sex toys for the couples use, but like there's one called I don't want to say what it's called, but like you can basically have these dolls or machines just perform sexual acts on you, and what else do you need? And so
Yeah.
it's crazy, this world, and that might seem pleasurable or attractive, but really think about what that's doing to you. Like, you just feel like you're alone. You don't need anybody else for this thing that in like sex is best. Every study will show it's best in marriage. It's best when you have less sexual partners. This isn't just, these aren't Christian studies. Every study shows this, almost every study. The less sexual partners you have, the more marital happiness you have. Economically, there's impacts. There's, your sex life is better. The less partners you have before marriage, it's unreal. So the more anybody, Christian or not, can be aligned with this stuff, it's just, you're going to be a happier person. And one thing that I would say is, if people are kind of justifying porn use, or like, I don't really care about this, and I like what I do. It's like, can you live a life? Like, do you need it? Like, is that ultimately what's making you happy or successful or helping you hit your goals, that you're watching porn? Because you really are contributing to an industry that just wrecks a lot of lives. And also, it's doing a number on you and your brain, even if you don't realize it. So you don't need porn. And if it's not good for you, we like, why are we doing it, right?
Yeah. So how do you take people to that journey of, if they don't think it's bad for you? Like, how do you, are there certain questions you ask, or are there, like, cause somebody may think, I'm not, I don't believe this, but like, it's not that big a deal. It doesn't hurt anybody. It's not really affecting my relationships. It doesn't affect the way I view the world, any of that kind of stuff. How do you bridge that gap from a belief system to say, wait a minute, it's like someone that says, I mean, now I'm huge into fitness and health and wellness and working out. And now we have this whole societal thing where, every size is beautiful, and, all this, which is, people do have beauty inside, but if you're 250 pounds overweight, there's something wrong. Like, that's something that's not a hard, that seems like an easier bridge to cross than this kind of hidden pornographic, this hidden thing with porn.
Yeah. Do some research on the porn industry, man. Like, if someone's not aware, it's not our fault always that we're not aware. When I was watching porn, I had no idea how bad it was. But I'll just, there's one ex-porn actress. She was top of the game, like top 10 porn stars in the world. Most porn stars last a year, maybe 2 years, and she lasted 7 years. And Brittany De La Mora is her name. You could find her on Instagram. But she
probably
said,
got to be careful what you search for, by the way.
Yeah, you do. I mean, she's good, right? Like, her stuff is good, but for sure, be careful with it. She said, what she said to me is, I'm a curious person. When I was in the industry, I asked people, why are you here? And she said, every single person had a sad story. Everyone was abused when they were 8 years old. Everyone was beat over the Bible by religious parents, telling them that they could never do anything wrong or whatever. And just like, everyone had some sad story. And she said, almost everybody doesn't have a relationship with their family and rebels against their family, like intentionally wants to hurt their family. And so, guy or girl in the industry, that's a real thing. And so it's sad, man. When can you hear that?
Yeah.
Sorry about that.
Little fire alarm going off.
Yeah. You got to edit that part, I guess. It's,
jeez. You need to go see if something on fire.
I don't know. It happens all the time. The way that they designed the house, the electricians, we've had like 2 or 3 in, they're all like, oh, we hate how this builder does it. So There's always going off, but
ours are wired all together like that, and we'll cut all this out. But ours are wired out as like that too. So it's it's wild. So, well, yeah. Sorry, minor interruption by the fire alarm, but
yeah, there you go. And so I actually don't often have those conversations because the people that we work with, they know they want to quit porn, and so that's more the people that we interact with. But it does come up. I mean, especially it's kind of funny when people ask what I do, like, oh, I help people with sexual addictions and porn addictions, and a lot of people are like, what? Like that's even a thing? I was skiing up in the Rocky Mountains in Banff, and there was a guy on a lift with me. And he asked what I did, and I said that, and he just went like silent, and then he laughed, and he hits me and goes, that's funny. Now tell me what you actually do. Like, no, that's what I do. It's pretty funny. And so a lot of people don't know that it even is an issue with porn addictions. But the reality is, I would just ask people, like, have you done that research on brain science? Have you looked at the porn industry? Does it contribute to your like goals in life? Like, what do you want in life? Does it help your relationship be healthier? I'm not sure. I mean, some people say that they do or that it does, but I've had many couples tell me, yeah, we used to use porn in our marriage, and now like I got divorced, or then we had to get rid of it and our sex life got better. And we used to tell each other and tell ourselves that porn helped our sex life, and without it, it's way better. And so, yeah, I mean, there's lots of stories, but people need to do research because the porn industry puts out just their cookie cutter image is that it's everything is good. All these porn stars at conventions will talk about the money that they make, and that we just get to have so much sex and get famous and all of that. But then you look at their lifestyle and the people that come out of it, they're like, no, I was lying, or I was on drugs every day, or I wanted to kill myself every day, but I couldn't say that when I was in the industry. And so, yeah, we kind of need to look behind the curtain and see what's going on.
Yeah, because there's a lot of drug abuse in the industry, obviously, and some of it's volunteer initial drug abuse, and some of it is highly suggested that people take drugs, during it. So that's a scary. And honestly, if you look at pornography and its effect, the way that it can, I would almost look at it almost like a drug, right? Like because it's literally. I'm a huge one on the brain chemistry and neuroscience and all of that. So if it's literally just changing the way your brain uses dopamine, that's the same thing. Like you said, cocaine does. I know crack, one of the problems with crack and meth is when they show the brain scans of people that actually take it, it actually it looks like it looks like a lightning storm under brain scan because it affects the dopamine and norepinephrine and all of those chemicals. Yeah. Together. So even if it's not something to where like I'm a drug addict, most people would argue that the occasional smoking of meth or crack is probably bad.
Right.
And so if you kind of frame it in that sense, that might be something that people might identify with. Because I know everybody here that's listening to this is not going to be on the same page with us, which is totally fine.
Yeah.
But yeah, it seems like that's a decent way to look at it.
Yeah. Oh, totally. Yeah, and I mean, if someone loves porn, I'm not going to be mad at them. Like, I still love them. Like, it's your life. You could do it. I'm not going to argue. But there are facts, and there are a lot of facts from scientific to relational to social research to spiritual things. I mean, there's lots of facts. There's one book. It's called Sex and Culture, and it's not a religious book in any way. It's by a guy named J.D. Unwin. He looked at cultures, like I think it was 60 or 80 societies from like over thousands of years. And he said when a culture becomes more liberal in their regard to monogamy, so people have more sexual partners, more sexual outlets, he said every single time economically the society collapses. And when there's more of an emphasis on monogamy, then economically things get better. If that's true for society, then that's also true for us individually. And I've seen it. People prosper more in various ways. Financial is just one of them. When porn is out of their life, I've seen it firsthand. So there's a lot of different impacts that porn has.
Yeah, that healthy monogamous relationship is something that's so downplayed now in our society. I mean, there's, the fact that we have a term body count
Yeah.
is freaking scary because, like,
Yeah, it's insane.
I see these like people interviewing young girls on the beach or something like that. What's your body count? And then they double it because whatever the girl is saying is half as much as what it really. And I'm thinking, you're 22 years old. How is that even like, did you not go to school? How does that even possible? Some of the,
I know.
and so it's in the Christian world and within our kind of, realm as Christians, we talk a lot about sex. We refer to it as sexual sin and the long-term effects of sexual sin. Because we're talking about it in context of a biblical worldview, of course. But I think the principle, whether you call it sexual sin or, sexual behavior, negative sexual behavior, we can call it that from a secular standpoint. That's something that stays with you. I think so many people discount the long-term effect of what that does to your brain, to your ability to have relationships. There's shame involved at some level. I think most people that are so ultimately carefree about it, I think that's kind of BS. It does affect you. Like, I don't care if you're a Christian, Muslim, Hindu, atheist, it doesn't matter. That stuff is going to affect you mentally and internally, and it affects your ability to have that long-term relationship with your spouse.
Yeah.
And I think that's something that is important for people to realize, that porn or multiple partners or promiscuity or whatever it happens to be, it's not a game that we're playing. There's that connection that we've been given when you have that sexuality and that intimacy that comes with, a whole different set of rules.
Yeah. Yeah. It's not a game. It's your life, right? Like it is serious. And you talk about sexual sin, like what sin is, when we're in sin, it's not like God's just wanting to beat us up with a mallet or something. Like, he's very concerned for our well-being. And I mean, from a Christian standpoint, he wants to have a relationship with us. He wants to have a relationship, I believe, with everybody. But sin is that it's not good for you. And so he's not just mad. In fact, he just loves you and he wants the best for you. And so, yeah, even for people that don't know God or not Christians, like I think that's helpful to hear, just because some people are like, oh, this is sin. Like, we're not putting shame on people. It's not good for you. And that's the main thing. You talk about monogamy, like that is not a good thing in this world these days. And what's happening in our world, like inflation, like economically, it's falling apart. It's exactly what Sex and Culture talks about in the book. And I could tell a lot of stories of people that are, 50s, 60s, they've been married a long time and they just can't stop thinking about sexual encounters that they had when they were teenagers, and they've carried shame their whole life over it. Christian or not, it doesn't matter, because when there's things in your life that felt really good in the past, and say now you're married and you're trying to have a good sex life with your spouse, but say there's tension, say there's turmoil, say there's medical issues that get in the way. Well, your brain just goes to what happened when you were young. It literally, our brain with our early sexual experiences in that brain development time, it takes a snapshot and it remembers it, stores it so clearly. And so people struggle literally for decades with stuff that they've done when they're young. And that's why it's like you're saying, this body count thing is so sad. I remember I saw one of those interviews too, and the girl was 21. And she's like, oh, it's just 50. It's not that high. I'm like, 50? How, I'm thinking, how do you even have the time?
That's what I was thinking too. It's like, that's a lot.
It's a lot. Like, you got to meet the person first. That is like, it's unreal, but it's really, really sad.
Well, and that just disconnects any intimacy from the heart and head standpoint. It's just 100% a physical act at that point. You basically turn yourself into a prostitute, a free prostitute at this point.
Yeah. There's a porn star that just came out of the industry. I think she was even number one for a while, but she's like, guys, I'm asexual. I'm not interested at all. I'm not into guys, not into girls. I don't want to have sex ever again. because it means nothing. And that's the reality, whether porn or not. When your body count is higher and higher and higher, it literally just means nothing anymore. It's really sad. And it's supposed to mean something amazing.
Yeah.
Sex is designed in marriage to be such a glue and to keep relationships together and to make us attracted. When we have sex with more partners, we're less attracted to each one uniquely. But when we have sex with one person, we're more attracted to that one person. This is what the science says, than we are to other people. And so there's a glue there, even scientifically, that is supposed to glue us together. But it's the same science that works in a positive when we're just with our spouse or the person that we're with. It's the same science that then works negatively when we're attaching ourselves to multiple people. We're uniquely attracted to less of them. And it's very sad. So there's a lot of power in it, both positive and negative, and we've got to play it to our favor.
Well, I've been married for 28 years, and our intimate relationship is better now than it was when we were in our 30s. And she's my age. She's just 6 months younger than me. So we're, I'm 50, she's 49. We've been married for almost 30 years. Boy, you're people would say that must suck. Like, how could you ever be with that one person? It literally gets better all the time. I mean, there's a comfort in knowing, that there's a freckle here, or, there's, and knowing even the mechanics of an intimate relationship. There, it's an exploratory thing all the time, and it's really fun, and we know each other, and we can laugh about things, and there's this closeness that comes from that. And it doesn't even even if it's not for the actual physical act of sex, there's just this intimacy and connection that happens all the time because we have that deeper connection that I just can't imagine being, having 50 people in that list. It's just unfathomable to me personally. But
yeah, it's really sad. No, that's cool. And that's in line with a lot of research too, is that the ideal time for a couple's sex life is after 20 or 25 years of marriage. And I remember
because the blood-sucking leeches moved out of my house like 4 or 5 years ago. So
exactly,
there's no kids in the house.
I remember I was engaged. There was a pastor that told me he had kids that are like 10 years old at that point. And he said, man, people in my church that are like, they're empty nesters now, they tell me, just wait till your kids are out. Then it gets good.
Yeah, I'm not sure I understand people I understand my kids are gone and we don't get to see them as much and all that kind of stuff. But like this whole being, miserable because your children don't live in your house, like you need to re-examine what's going on in your house if that's the case.
There's a better way.
Yeah.
There's a better way. Yeah. It's cool.
So I'm trying to think of, so if someone is like, if someone's listening to this and like, I don't really know whether I have an issue with this, I don't know whether I need to get help. Like, what's their steps that they would take in order to kind of start identifying whether or not there's a problem, really looking in that, if they do figure out that there's a problem, what do they do next, whether it's through your ministry or, other resources?
Yeah. I mean, you can certainly reach out and have a call. Like on our website, there's a button, just click a button to book a call, and we have a female coach and me, and so we can just walk you through it. It's not like a high pressure sales call. It's just like, where are you at and what's good for you?
Yeah.
And
we have to do FaceTime. I'd like for you to show me all your drawers in your closet and all that. We're going to get into this right now.
Exactly. So yeah, no one would fucking call if that were the case. But if you want to do your own research too, Fight the New Drug is really good. You can look up Fight the New Drug, and they're a secular, not a religious organization, and our aim is to help people who are stuck and want out, stuck in sexual brokenness. Brokenness being like suffering from the trauma of abuse or affairs or porn addiction or whatever. But Fight the New Drug, their aim is to educate on the harms of pornography. And so that's one place you can do a lot of research and just look at your life. There's I could have said this a couple minutes ago, but there's a couple that I was talking to probably a couple months ago on our podcast, and they had 10 years of like a lot of struggle in their marriage with their sex life, and it actually all stemmed from prior sexual partners that the wife had. But the husband had never looked at porn in his life. He's like, I'm not going to do it. I'm not looking elsewhere. So they just stuck it out together and they made it work. But now they've been married about 17 years. And so the first 10 years were brutal. We did an episode on our podcast about sexual compatibility. So we were doing research. I looked on Google, what is sexual compatibility? And it said, it's when couples, a man and woman, has the same sex drive and likes the same things all the time. I went, that's like nobody is compatible.
No, yeah, so there's no one compatible.
Exactly. And then they said in the same article, they were like, and sexual compatibility is very important for relationships. Okay, none of us are sexually compatible. I couldn't believe it. But
obviously some dude that was 17-year-old wrote that article, you know.
Exactly. Oh man. So this couple, 10 years of struggle, not sexually compatible apparently, but they just work it out. So now the last 7 years have been amazing. So they teach on sex, they travel the world, they work for Moral Revolution, it's called. And so they're like, yeah, we travel the world teaching on sex and having sex, and it's awesome, which is pretty cool. But so he was telling a story, the guy, and he was saying that one of his friends has lived with like a common law girlfriend for a long time, and they're really struggling in their sex life. And so his friend came to him and said, Cole, I need help. Can you help me? And Cole said, your problem is that you're not married. And his buddy said, nah, marriage wrecks sex. I don't want to get married because that wrecks sex. And
of course it does.
Yeah. Cole said, my marriage screams the opposite of that.
Yeah.
And so this guy that doesn't have a sex life with his common law girlfriend is telling the married guy with a good sex life that marriage wrecks sex. So when I say we got to look at our life, you're saying, what's the first thing that people should do? Look at your life, not through the narratives that the world has given you about what good sex is. Look at your life from a real standpoint and consider, what if you didn't watch porn? What would your life look like? Actually, from a realistic standpoint in your relationships, from your motivation to be productive in life, to the joy that you have, does porn contribute to that or take away from that? And if you can do it kind of take inventory of things, the effects that porn or sexual behavior, unhealthy sexual behavior has had on your life, don't just justify it without thinking through it. Think through it and go, is this a problem? And if it's a problem, then you need to do something about it. And so the first thing I would say is talk to some people that you trust about some issues in your life. We gotta have people help us. And if you don't have those people, obviously we're one resource out there that you could reach out and book a call. So, but yeah, that person, it's just an example of, no, marriage wrecks sex. Like, where did you hear that? Because it's not reality. Yeah. It's just the world will tell you that in lots of different ways.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's probably some truth to, if you've been married for a long time and you no longer you don't have a healthy sexual relationship, whether it's through porn or through affairs or just you pour, a lot of times the wife will, or typically it's the mom will pour too much emotional energy into the children. And so when the kids are gone, they don't, they haven't really figured out how to deal with that. I mean, and so I always encourage couples throughout their marriage. I think we've been to different kinds of counseling 5 or 6 times as just literally just tune-ups. It's like we're a big car family, and it's just like changing the oil in your car, right? It just, sometimes you need things to do. And if there's something going on, if you're listening to this and you're not, the porn aspect of it doesn't necessarily resonate other than it's interesting, which statistically speaking is probably still not true because it's pretty rampant. But even if that's something that's not there, but if you have issues in your intimate relationship with your spouse, take a step back, kind of figure out where you're at, seek out help from different people. And there's tons of different resources out there. Because I mean, dude, it's marital sex and intimacy is amazing, can be amazing for sure.
Yeah, it can be. And you got to ask too, what's your priority? Do you want a really good marriage or relationship, or do you want to prioritize sex?
Yeah.
And have that be the ultimate? And that's what a lot of people think, even unknowingly, is that sex is ultimate. If I had a good sex life, things would be good. And it's well, if your sex life struggles, but you still can come together in that conflict with your spouse, you're going to be a heck of a lot happier in that scenario than if your relationship's terrible, but your sex is good. And so you need to look at what's important too for your overall health and happiness. Sex isn't ultimate, but a lot of the narratives out there, it makes us believe that it is.
Which, I mean, that doesn't make sense anyway, because unless you just die at 25, right? Like, because you have like ailment, there could be physical issues, there could be, age issues, there could be, whatever these different things are, that if that's the ultimate thing, you're pretty much in trouble, long term, because there's going to be something that happens, in that relationship. I guess that's when you go find a new relationship. That's kind of the trend, right? That's what the world will tell you that's easier, which it's 100% not easier.
Well, yeah, because sex is ultimate. If it's not working out, then find a new relationship where it's going to be better, where you're sexually compatible.
Yeah, then you got 2 years of that, and then you get another one, then that gets bad, and this is how people get married 7 or 8 times in their lifetime, right? Which just sounds miserable to me too, but...
Yeah, exactly.
My wife's almost got me trained, and it's almost been 30 years, so...
You'll get there. She'll get there. She's got a lot of work.
Yeah, maybe if I live another 60 years, we'll be good.
Yeah.
We'll get closer, but... Well, so give me the links again on how to find you guys, and I'll put links to those books. So we have Sex and Culture, or was the other? You kind of list those couple of resources that you gave me.
Man, there was Moral Revolution I referred to. Oh, okay. Fight the New Drug, I think, was the other one.
Yeah, Fight the New Drug,
which is really good. And then for us, we've got an online community too. If guys over 18 just want to be part of a community, it's free. You don't have to interact if you don't want to, or you could just check things out for a week before making a post. It's pretty cool, guys. We're posting every day. Guys are on there supporting each other, and so it's free for men over 18. We do monthly challenges too, just to help people get more sexually healthy, no matter what their sexual issue is. So it's really good. And then restoredministries.ca. Has all of that information. Pure Freedom Community is the community, and then our podcast is Pure Victory Podcast on any app. So
cool. Yeah,
hope that helps.
You've got a few more episodes on me. Like 150 extra episodes that I've done. So you're the pro for sure. Well, Matt, I appreciate this. It's been super interesting. I wish you guys the best. And if you're listening to this and you're dealing with any level of some of these concerns we've been talking about, please feel free to reach out, and we'll either reach out to us, reach out to Matt, of course, and Restored Ministries, and I'm sure they can steer you in the right way. And I'll end by quoting Chris Pratt: "There is a God, and He loves you." Right? Like I love that he's been saying that. So appreciate you, Matt. I hope you have a great day.
Thanks, Kevin.
If you're looking to really maximize your life and become the man you were made to be, head over to maxedoutman.com and get your journey started today.